A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. Our case this week is tragic on so many levels. Police say that an otherwise healthy woman was somehow tricked by her close friend, who is a nurse, and the nurse allegedly convinced her that she was terminally ill and that she was dying. Police say the nurse allegedly convinced this woman that she could end her suffering with a lethal dose of insulin. The motive? Investigators say that the nurse believed that she was set to receive a $1.5 million insurance payout after her friend's passing. However, family members say the victim never had such a policy, and doctors say that the victim never had cancer, never had diabetes, or any other medical issues. So how did all of this happen? We're recording this on Friday, March 28th of 2025. Our guest today is Alison Triessl, a criminal defense attorney based in Los Angeles, a legal expert for the TV show Access Hollywood, as well as for KTLA, a local news station here in LA. Alison is also a dear friend of the show, a friend of mine. Alison, how are you?
I'm great, and thank you for having me. I always enjoy spending time with you and your crime family, and this is certainly a doozy of a case and so tragic. In my mind, probably preventable, but really sad case.
It's very sad because at the heart of it, allegedly, is how far you can manipulate another person, perhaps preying on their fears and their weaknesses to the point that the victim here apparently, according to family and police, was somehow convinced she was dying, but she wasn't sick.
Right. And, that's where sort of some of my questions begin is how come she never went to the doctor to confirm that she had a terminal illness? And I'm certainly by no means ever going to blame the victim in this case or any case, because ultimately, if these charges are true, and if this nurse did this, she used that friendship to manipulate this woman and control her and ultimately kill her if these allegations are true.
And here's the other part, and this is the part of, that goes to motive that I'm having some trouble with. There was no insurance policy, and apparently there was discussion of this.
So according to the reports, the nurse had been plotting or planning this for years, and they exchanged something like 28,000 text messages. And when she was being investigated, she allegedly deleted 900 of those text messages, but they recovered to over 28,000 text messages that showed that this conversation about the fact that there was this insurance money allegedly, that the nurse wanted Kacee to make her the beneficiary. The nurse talked about her financial problems and repeatedly talked about injecting her with insulin. And a needle, a syringe, was found at the scene. It's so disturbing. I mean, it's so disturbing. And, they did take their time investigating this case. The death occurred in August of last year. The arrest was very recent. And I think that probably was because they did their own investigation. They, recovered all those text messages. They probably waited for the coroner's report to show that there was no cancer. There was no, as you said, no diabetes, getting all the blood work back to show that at the time, her insulin levels were something like at a 10 or something, which is just beyond low. And, she suffered, Anna. This woman didn't die for days. So she had this horrible labored breathing. The grandfather, when he called the paramedics, said it sounded, like she was drowning. And so she ultimately went to the hospital, even though the nurse said, well, she has a do not resuscitate order. This is, according to the reports. And she don't take her to the hospital. Paramedics ultimately did take her to the hospital, and she suffered for days before she finally died.
Yeah. There's a lot of information that is missing here, and some of it quite deliberate. Apparently, some very crucial text messages right before the day of the alleged injection. That has not been made public purposely by the police. Here's the other thing. This police department that's covering this incident out of Highland, Utah, there has not been a homicide in Highland, Utah in decades. Decades.
Yeah. I mean, I have a girlfriend from Utah who doesn't live far from this town. And she said that's one of the safest cities. That's one of the safest communities in all of Utah. I mean, this is sort of unheard of. And, when you think about a nurse as a caretaker, as somebody that provides care to people, you just never would expect something like this.
Also, one would think you would not automatically go to murder at this scene when you have a nurse there by your side. Allegedly the woman was ill. Of course, that's where the autopsy comes in. It's very interesting that for a series of departments that don't handle a lot of homicides, and this one appears to be a very complicated one, not an easy, person was shot, person was strangled. This one is far more layered. So
right.
It's right?
Not obvious.
Not obvious.
But I have to say that according to the reports that I have read, her sister did tell the police that she personally moved Kacee out of the shared apartment and into her grandfather's house where she lived, when this happened, due to Kacee complaining about Meggan, the nurse, bringing insulin to the home and trying to talk Kacee into treatments to help her end her suffering. So this didn't come out of the blue. There were concerns, and at some point, Kacee was concerned enough that this woman, Meggan Sundwall, was doing damage to her, that she moved out of the home. And in with her grandfather, yet on the day of her death, or excuse me, on the day that the paramedics were called, Meggan was with her from early in the morning throughout the entire day with nobody else there in the house.
Yeah, it's very, very interesting layered case. And again, there are some things we just can't answer for you. But I think we have to have a serious discussion about this one because, again, it was not obvious. This one was not obvious, especially for such a small police department that doesn't usually handle cases like this. Let's talk about who all is involved here. The victim here is 38-year-old Kacee Terry. And the accused is a nurse, 47-year-old Meggan Sundwall. Now, Kacee died last year in August of 2024, but the arrest was not made until March of this year of 2025, March 20th. So police say that Kacee and Meggan had been friends for a few years, even for a short time living together and sharing an apartment. But Kacee's family insists that Meggan was not a close friend. They're very insistent on that. So, but I don't know how you say that if you're living with someone. It's also a little confusing because apparently the nurse, Meggan, was married, has a husband, was having financial problems, apparently, according to the court records, lost her job. So all of this is part of the discussion. And then the fact that Kacee, the victim here, her family swoops in, grabs her, takes her out of this situation and moves her in with her grandfather is all indicative of other things going on here, right?
I mean, that's sort of the point to me that is so peculiar, right? Is how did this woman get access again to Kacee after there were concerns that she was doing harm to her? Also, I agree with you. You don't live with someone under this circumstance. They were friends, and because she trusted her enough. She trusted her enough to believe the diagnosis that she had terminal cancer without going to a doctor to confirm that. And she trusted this woman enough to have her inject insulin. I'm not sure why they are downplaying the nature of the relationship, but I do believe that these women were close enough that there was a trust that had been established there. And certainly Kacee, who from all accounts was a really lovely person, voluntarily agreed to these shots, these insulin shots, and several other medications that Meggan, the nurse, would administer.
And you don't communicate thousands and thousands of text messages.
Correct.
Over the course of 4 years.
Correct.
With someone that you don't have some level of a relationship with. Now,
Correct.
From the family's perspective, they may not have believed that the nurse, Meggan, was a good friend. I get that. I get that 100%.
Yeah.
But I think there are perspectives to this relationship, which again makes this a very layered case. Now, there are so many red flags and it's so baffling. Honestly, here's the other thing. There was a point where Kacee's health declined. This is according to the report, to the point that she was physically limited. And here's where I'm having a problem. If she's not ill, if she doesn't have these terminal diseases, how did the physical limitations manifest? Is it possible that she was being given something? That's pure speculation on my part. I'm trying to understand how her physical appearances and manifestation seem to line up with a severe illness when there is no illness.
Well, I would add to that by saying if you are told often enough that you are dying and you're not doing well, you then start to believe it and you act accordingly. And you and I have seen that in other cases, right? This idea of like Munchausen by proxy or whatever, where, you convince the person that they are truly ill.
Yeah, I really can't wait until we hear the rest of this, because these red flags are so massive.
Yes.
So massive.
I agree.
And it does seem that the family was trying to protect her.
But see, and Anna, that's sort of, to me, the red flags are when the family felt strongly enough that they moved her out of the house. And she had said to them, something's not right here.
Yeah.
This woman keeps trying to have me take the insulin. Something's not right here. And so certainly Kacee had grown concerned enough that she had alerted her family and left the living situation because she felt unsafe.
Apparently, Kacee told family members that the actual diagnosis was leukemia.
Yeah.
That is what she said. This happened years. She shared this years prior to the incident and then her death. So regardless of Kacee's actual diagnosis, it does appear that somehow Kacee's very real fears about her health were weaponized by her nurse, her friend Meggan. Now, police suspect that she was able to prey upon those fears and manipulate, and that will be the key here. One of the keys here. And then the other thing is really going to be, for me, is going to be motivation. How are police going to show, and again, we have not all the conversations have been released, but if there was no policy, and the family has told several news outlets in Utah that Meggan, the nurse, had been told that there was no policy. This is prior to Kacee's death. How are prosecutors going to make that a strong motive here?
Well, I'm going to tell you that I think that 20 in one or more of those 28,000 text messages, I believe that it's going to show a conversation. I have a strong suspicion, I should say, that there will be a conversation about life insurance and making her the beneficiary, and the fact that the nurse was, in fact, having financial difficulties. That is a lot of text messages. And so whether or not there is a life insurance policy will not affect the prosecutor's case, because if she believed there was, and you don't need to show murder in a murder case. I mean, you don't need to show murder. But one thing that I can guarantee you the prosecutors are going to get up and stress repeatedly and over again, if this case goes to trial, is this wasn't just a friend that was manipulating her. This was a nurse. This is somebody that had specialized skill and training. And so she used that position of trust and knowledge and skill to manipulate her friend. And if she did this, ultimately to kill her.
Right. And she's also, of course, been criticized, no matter what you may think of the charges in innocent until proven guilty. The fact that at the time of her decline, of Kacee's decline, right before the paramedics were called, that she had been suffering for hours, based on the fact that, according to court records, that Meggan the nurse called her own mother when Kacee was failing. That why, if she were a nurse, why did she not take better care and jump in and call for an ambulance, and then argue with family members when they wanted to call an ambulance, and she's saying, no, there's a do not resuscitate, when there isn't one.
Right. These are what I would call, as a defense attorney, bad facts for me in my case. Very bad facts, right? So the prosecutor is going to get up and say, this woman had no incentive to get this woman help. She was with her from, I think it was 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. that night or something like that, all alone, watching her suffer. The grandfather is going to testify that she couldn't breathe and it sounded like she was drowning. And this woman essentially watched her suffer and then told paramedics, do not take her to the hospital. She has a do not resuscitate order. And essentially said, I have a power of attorney, when all of those things were not true. When all of those things were not true. And those are what we call bad facts.
Exactly. And here's what's, again, perplexing, that if indeed, I guess the thing is, for the nurse here, that's a lot of, if that's what she said and that's accurate, those are a lot of blatant lies. Like, she didn't have power of attorney. Where are the documents? There was no do not resuscitate. Where is the document? There was no life insurance policy for $1.5 million. Where are the documents? So is it that the nurse was delusional as well? I don't know.
Well, I mean, look, it is a very different story. So if her story is to be believed, here is a compassionate, loving caretaker that didn't want her friend to suffer. Mm-hmm. So her narrative, right? Her narrative is, I was providing her essentially hospice care so that she wouldn't suffer in the last moments of her life. And the reason that we were so close that I alone knew her wishes, and her wishes were, I don't want to be resuscitated. I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to die peacefully, or whatever that is. And I have power of attorney to make these decisions, right? So the implication is, I know exactly what she wants. Let's honor those requests. Thank goodness they did not, right? Thank goodness they did not. And it turned into a suspicious death, right? Because the family members said, well, when the doctor told them when the doctors told the family that she didn't have cancer, that she didn't have diabetes, allegedly the family was shocked. They couldn't believe it because they had been told this narrative so often that they themselves believed it. And you're right, she looked as if she was sickly. And, it's so unconscionable and unbelievable that you can't imagine anyone making this up.
Yes, absolutely. And the fact that in the last crucial hours and days of Kacee's life, when she was in the hospital, family would have had enough time in this period, even though it was obviously too late, to get the information from her doctor that, no, she doesn't have these conditions. And that really, I believe, would have started the investigation in earnest before she even passed, because she's presenting as being so very ill and having such insulin problems when she doesn't have diabetes, when she doesn't have cancer. And the medical records from her primary physician can easily, be communicated to hospital staff immediately.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So I think that was the crucial time period when this investigation honestly began in earnest, right?
Yeah, no question.
So let's get to the day, the morning and the day when the paramedics are called. So that's August 12th of 2024. And just before 10 a.m., authorities say that Meggan texted Kacee saying, "Do you want to take some promethazine when I get there so that you are asleep when this is happening?" That's a quote from a text message from the nurse to her friend. Okay, so what's curious, remember I said that there are some text messages that authorities have not released in the court record? Mm-hmm. The text message that immediately precedes that communication has not been released. That must be the gold mine right there.
Right. Sure. And for our listeners, promethazine is used for allergies, but it's also used for nausea and vomiting, and I'm assuming that it would relax her and probably put her to some sort of light sleep state.
To immobilize her, right? Yeah. To immobilize. So investigators say that Kacee died a very slow and painful death, and not because of cancer or anything else. Instead, they believe it was too much insulin. They have accused Meggan of injecting Kacee with what ultimately would become a fatal dose, if not in real time, but 3 days later. So they say that Kacee died of hypoglycemia. This was all about her glucose, and that the body and the brain's main source of energy, the glucose, had been depleted. So the condition became so severe that they could not save her in the hospital. Now so we know now how serious it is and that she's dying. But let's stay in the home when a family member comes in, sees Meggan the nurse, sees that poor Kacee is unresponsive. She's struggling to breathe. There's the argument between the family and the nurse about calling 911. Thank goodness, right? 911 is called. And so now they're in touch with the operator from the Lone Peak Police Department. So apparently she had been struggling for hours by the time the paramedics arrived there. And again, the paramedics believe she's suffering from multiple health issues because the nurse can tell them that in real time. However, the paramedics did find a diabetic needle. That's what they said that they found, which they thought was interesting because the woman doesn't have diabetes, right? So quick thinking there, very quick thinking. She's transported to Mount Point Hospital with dangerously low blood sugar, life-threatening at this point. So her blood sugar levels 3 times, as you said, Alison, 3 times lower. I mean, we're talking life-threatening. It was a miracle she was even alive.
Her blood sugar level was a 14, and blood sugar levels become lethal at 40 or below. I mean, this is shocking. I mean, this poor woman was sick and suffering, and according to her grandfather, she was making sounds as if she was drowning.
Oh, it's so disturbing. The autopsy revealed that Kacee's cause of death was an overdose of promethazine, also issues with insulin, which the autopsy concluded had been administered outside the body. And no one believes that she administered it herself. At least that's what authorities are saying. And then the autopsy confirms Kacee didn't have cancer. Kacee didn't suffer from other health issues. She didn't have diabetes. So, I mean, right there, when authorities get the autopsy back, you got two radically different stories.
Yeah, I mean, these aren't just red flags. I mean, right? These are alarm bells. This is like a 5-bar. This is, wait a minute. We're learning that this woman believed that she had cancer and she doesn't. And there's a woman that had been in her house all day who's a nurse and doesn't call the paramedics. And the family saying, our daughter, our sister was so concerned that she wanted to move out of this condo. So those are things that immediately pique an investigator's interest immediately. And again, I believe that this actually investigation was very methodical and done well. And the length of time was really because there was an abundance of evidence that they had to go through. So, you're sifting through 28,000 text messages and you're waiting for blood results to come back and the autopsy to come back. And that does take time. So, from what we have, and remember, you're right, we don't have all the text messages and some are deleted immediately before this incident. This appears to be a very strong case for the prosecutor, a very strong case. This woman is charged with first degree aggravated murder, which in Utah does carry life imprisonment without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. I will say, I don't know how familiar our listeners are with women being executed, but it's not common. And in fact, in Utah, no female has ever been executed. And in Utah, there have only been, since 1847, 50 executions, all of whom are men. So there's no women on death row in Utah. It would be very unusual if they asked for the death penalty, but there certainly are the factors, Anna. There are the factors in this case that would warrant the aggravation, right? Is the suffering, the fact that she was in a position of trust that would warrant the death penalty. But if history dating back to the 1800s is any guide, she will not be charged with the death penalty.
The text messages that we keep discussing, because there are so many of them, almost 30,000 of them, they're, how I keep saying, like, how is it possible, right? How is it possible that the nurse, Meggan, believed that there was an insurance policy when there wasn't? Okay, so there are little nuggets that have been released, and here's one of them. According to police, there were numerous text messages between the two women about this alleged policy. Now, this one to me is the most fascinating. This is when the nurse, Meggan, offers to pay the premiums for this alleged policy that doesn't even exist. So what we don't know is she suggesting you need to get a policy? She believes there's a policy, because then what happens right after Kacee's death is that Meggan was calling and she was emailing and texting anyone she could within the family and doing research about Kacee's alleged insurance policy because she thought for sure she was the beneficiary and she was going to collect.
Yeah. I mean, when someone's calling in to check on life insurance immediately after another person's death, police kind of elevate your status to the real high on the suspect list. And that's one of the first tells is that what is the motive? Well, money, jealousy, right? I mean, those are the two top motives. Money is right there. And so, she by deleting 900 texts, I'm always amazed, Anna, how, and again, this woman is innocent until proven otherwise. So, but if in fact she deleted 900 text messages, she doesn't understand, as many who commit crimes do not, they don't simply go away. They don't go away. And, they try and scrub their phone, their computer, whatever that is. But it's just a matter of time before they are extracted from the cloud and they reappear. They reappear. And, of course, I understand why people do it. I understand why they do it. But ultimately, the technology these days is so very good and so advanced that it's very hard to hide anything.
Absolutely. And it does make her look guilty by deleting 900 text messages. If this was indeed your bestie who just passed, right? Correct. You'd want to hold on to every word she ever said to you. Correct.
That is correct. Yeah.
Right? That is how most people would be. Police finally arrest Meggan on March 20th of 2025. While the criminal investigation obviously is still going on, her professional license has been put on a suspension because she is a nurse. She's been charged with first-degree felony, aggravated murder, along with third-degree felony obstruction of justice. That would be for allegedly deleting the 900 text messages, and she is currently being held in a Utah County jail. I read somewhere that, that Meggan felt that maybe the reason she deleted the text messages is because someone would have thought that she was guilty. Well, that's kind of interesting. That it would make her look bad.
Oh my goodness, these make me look so bad. I had to get rid of them. I mean, they make you look bad because they're bad. I mean, that's, they're bad. I want to just loop back to one theme that has been interesting to me. And that is that allegedly, Meggan would pop by unannounced to Kacee's grandfather's home. And Kacee was so concerned about it that she started locking the doors to prevent her from just popping in. And friends reported that that Meggan had tried to isolate and seclude Kacee, which is a tell of control.
Yep.
And sometimes nefarious behavior. And so that's something that we want to know more about. I want to know more about, because why wasn't more done to prohibit Meggan from having access to Kacee? It's a strange thing to me that she would have been able that day to be with her unattended with nobody else from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Yeah, it is troubling. I saw a friend of Kacee's interviewed, again, on Utah television, saying that she wasn't surprised about Meggan being arrested, and that Meggan really tried to isolate Kacee away from her friends and her family, and how troubled they were by it. Now, here's the thing, though, Alison. Do most people think that when you have, let's say, a controlling friend who, let's say, is annoying and you don't like and you're scared of them, or list all the things, right, about someone you don't want to see, and you're trying to do everything you can to keep this person away from you, does that rise to the level in anyone's brain, this woman is dangerous and is going to kill Kacee?
Most likely not, right?
Right?
Because you never want to blame. Now, you and I are a little different. Okay, I'm suspicious.
Yes.
I mean, I've been representing criminals for almost 30 years. You've been covering crime for,
Same amount. Yeah.
and so I'm always interested in people's motivations. And when I hear something that, makes my ears kind of perk, I do tell my friends, let's get out of this situation. The situations that I'm referring to are ones where they're in a toxic relationship. And I hear something that I say, wait a minute, this is a little dangerous. This could result in something. But again, here you have a nurse, you have a friendship, you have someone who everybody believes is terminally ill. So lucky her, she has a nurse by her side to help her. I think you're absolutely right, Anna. No, I mean, why would anyone suspect until Kacee tells them, I got to get out of here. This woman's trying to inject me with insulin all the time.
Right. And at that point, maybe you could have called police. Whether they would have taken them seriously or not, that's a whole other situation. But it's most people, when we have these situations, no one ever leaps to the conclusion that someone is trying to kill me. That is like the last thing on the list usually. I know you are suspicious and I am suspicious, but I can't fault anyone there, right?
Right. No, I mean, look, there's no fault to be had. Here's the thing, right? I mean, with a case like this, there's only if she did this, there's only one person to blame. I mean,
Right.
that I will end my part of the conversation where I started, which is you never blame the victim, and you never. I mean, if she did this, the nurse is the only one to blame here. But the one thing we can do is collect some takeaways to be more prepared in the future, to think about what we can do if we see something that is suspicious that maybe could have prevented this. So my takeaways are, if someone's telling you this, listen to what they're saying. Do you tell the police? Do you get a restraining order? Do you say, wait a minute, she's doing all of this to you. Have you gone to the doctor? I mean, let's confirm. How do you know that you have terminal cancer? Should we get here? Should we get a second opinion? Should we, things like that. So I really, this is one of the most sinister, disturbing. Yeah. I mean, this girl suffered for days, Anna, and then spent, years of her life. I mean, allegedly she wanted children of her own. She was young. She was in her late 30s.
She thought she was dying. She thought she was at the end of her life, and she wasn't.
I know. Horrible. Absolutely. Horrible.
It's not only has her life been taken away, which is the most serious part of it, but those last few years, maybe those 4 years of her life when she would have been from age 34 to 38.
Unconscionable.
She spent 4 years thinking she was dying, and this was the last time she would see anyone.
Yeah. Horrible.
Oh my God.
I know.
That is so malicious.
Yes, it is.
It's so horrible. And then, when you read the obituary and the things that the family have shared, Kacee's final wishes were to be buried alongside her dog, Bella, who gave her so much comfort in the ailing years of her life. And she's buried with her dog and her parents.
Yeah, I mean, this is someone that had a very long life ahead of her, and she spent years of it believing that she was dying.
Yeah, she was divorced at the time. She didn't have children. Kacee didn't have children of her own, but the man she married brought a wonderful son with him, and she had a relationship with her stepson, according to the obituary. So here's a kind and loving woman who also worked for a company called Chrysalis, and that says more about her. She worked helping people who had disabilities. What does this say about our victim here, Kacee?
Lovely. Gone way too soon. We needed her, right?
Yes, Alison, we needed her on this earth, on this planet, to continue to be the good person that she was.
Yes, we needed her.
Oh, I'm heartbroken by this case, and we are going to follow this because I want to know what really happened here. It is time for our comment section. These are the crime cases you all are talking about on social media, and here's our producer, Will Updike. Hey, Will, how are you?
Good. How's it going, Anna?
Good.
Alison, great to see you. Great to have you back.
Hi, Will. Thank you. Love being here.
A little behind the scene note, Alison stepped in on kind of short notice to help us out. So we love having her on the show anytime, but this one's especially special because it was like a surprise. But anyways, this week we have a case of a sticky situation allegedly caught on a secret camera. This case comes out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where a man has been arrested after allegedly sneaking super glue into the soda of a coworker. So
how do you do that?
Right? So how this all kind of unfolded is officers were conducting sort of a foot patrol at the Wisconsin State Fairgrounds, which is where these employees allegedly work together. This was happening just after 11 a.m. on March 20th. So while the officers are sort of, surveying the grounds, doing their things, their checks, the alleged victim in this case, who's identified only as JH, pulled a couple of these officers to the side and just asked to have a private conversation. So the officers oblige, and JH proceeds to tell authorities that she believed that her beverage had been contaminated with some sort of chemical substance. And she believed that it had started a couple weeks previously when she noticed a weird smell and weird taste after consuming a beverage that, she had left on her desk. And shortly after consuming it, she falls ill. So because of the strong chemical smell and taste, she's pretty suspicious. So she sets up a surveillance camera at her desk. And allegedly, the surveillance camera captures her coworker, Joseph Ross, putting another foreign substance into JH's Coke can the same morning officers arrived. So I told you officers arrived around 11 a.m. Reportedly, the surveillance camera captured this at around 9:51. So just over an hour before police were on the scene there. So JH shows police this footage, and it allegedly shows Ross here wearing latex gloves and holding this brown and orange tube. And then you can allegedly see Ross putting the white nozzle of the tube into this Coke can. It's, regular red Coke can. You can, from the pictures they've released, you can kind of see gloves and the whole thing. So authorities speak with Mr. Ross. He allegedly admits to putting a supplement. I guess just referred to it as a supplement in the coworker's drink.
Yes. The supplement, a little collagen. Yeah.
It's protein, it's good for you. So
Will,
police,
can I tell you that I actually am covering this next week for KTLA, and
oh wow,
the video of him doing it is absolutely wild. I mean, it's
scary. There's full gloves and
and I think it's Gorilla Glue, which is to hold a house together. It's unbelievably. And when he does get to court, the judge, when his attorney asks the judge to go easy on him, this female judge absolutely becomes unglued, and just blasts him. I mean, absolutely blasts him, and says this is just one of the most horrible things she has ever seen. And apparently this guy did it on 4 occasions, allegedly.
Yikes.
Yeah.
So, well, and then officers, he allegedly admits to putting this substance in there. They search his office and they find these kind of wadded up gloves. And like Alison said, there was inside the gloves, there's container of Gorilla brand super glue. And, if you've ever dealt with super glue before, there's warnings all over the darn thing that say don't ingest this. There's a lot of warnings on it. And if you've ever dealt with super glue, even if you're being careful, it's pretty easy to sometimes make a mistake and end up with some fingers glued together or something glued to something else. So he was arrested. They take the Coke can back to the lab for further testing. Joseph Ross here has been charged with 1 felony count of placing foreign objects in edibles which is a charge I guess it seems so specific. I guess I'd never heard of that one before.
Yeah. And, I thought about the charges. I mean, I think that they've undercharged this person. I think they could have.
Oh, really?
With essentially intentionally poisoning someone. I'm surprised that, and I also am curious to know what his relationship or lack of was with this coworker. Had he expressed some interest in her and she didn't reciprocate? That hasn't been shared yet, but I'm assuming there's something there. I mean, wasn't just a random act. It was the same person on multiple occasions. But yeah, this is undercharged.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the other part of the picture we don't have is, what the relationship was. Was there tension? Was there, because that's kind of where my mind went too. Was there sort of a romantic advance or something? What was the full intent? Was it just to make her sick? What did he think that something worse would happen? It's kind of.
I don't know, but I'll tell you what I'm going to say next week. And that is, if I'm this guy's counsel, I am rushing to the court to have him plead guilty immediately before they wise up and charge him with really, really serious offenses, because I think they can prove it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So he is currently behind bars in the Milwaukee County Jail in lieu of a $10,000 bond. Now, if he does end up making that bond, there is a no contact order already in place for the victim, just to make sure that she is safe there. And if he is convicted, like Alison said, there could be stronger charges. But as he faces right now, he would face a maximum penalty of about 3.5 years and a fine of up to $10,000, which compared to some of the things Alison is saying, might be a pretty good deal, honestly, if you could just take that.
Yeah, I mean, and he won't first of all, he won't serve 3 years, but also he won't get 3 years because he has no prior record.
Right. So
I'm running into court, sooner rather than later and saying to my, super glue villain, we're pleading. This is done. Yeah.
I think he's on the phone looking for you right now, Alison. He wants to switch counsel. He wants a new attorney. He wants that Alison Triessl.
The guy, Alison, you've seen the mugshot, correct? Have you seen this guy's mugshot?
Yeah, he looks like a little Danish sort of.
Yeah. I bring it up because we got a lot of comments about the mugshot. He kind of has bangs. It's kind of like one of the three. Who's the Three Stooges who has like the bowl cut? Is that Mo?
Mo and yes, I think it's Mo.
He kind of has like a Mo haircut. He's 34 years in age, which is close in age to myself. I'm of course only 28, but close enough that he looks like maybe he's lived a rougher life than me. But
well, that's an understatement. That is an understatement. Correct. Yes.
But people had a lot to say on this one. Daniel D said, looks like he's also been sniffing the glue, which
that's funny.
Who's to say?
That's a good one.
Working at the fairgrounds, it seems like everyone would have super glue. That seems like kind of a tool for the trade. I don't know exactly what their jobs entail, but anytime I'm at the fair on a ride or something, I'm assuming there's some super glue involved somewhere.
Well, because they're gluing the rides back together.
Well, yes. 100%. Oh, yeah.
That's how they hold them together, for heaven's sakes.
We got another comment from Martin W, who also kind of agrees with maybe this was a romantic thing. They said he's the kind of guy who says women only like bad guys, not kind men with integrity like me. Which, again, we don't know the full circumstances of this, but it does. Anytime there is like a weird coworker thing like this, does it seem like this is what it always kind of boils down to?
Well, I mean, to me, it just is. It screams there's something there because this was not a random act. It was targeted, and according to the reports that I read, it was more than one time. It was on at least 4 occasions.
Yeah, it does seem like there were multiple incidents. Janelle B said this is a sticky situation. Indeed, I'm glad she put the secret camera by her desk.
Yes.
Which honestly, kudos for that. You gotta be super aware of your surroundings, especially if there's an open beverage. I mean, normally I would think at work it would be fine, but if you notice something, it's better to do something, I guess, than to just think that you're being paranoid or something.
Mm-hmm. And imagine if in our first case, the family, right, of Kacee had thought
put a camera
right?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Imagine the gold mine of information and context about what was really going on.
You're right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Commenter Royalty K had a sort of a warning about coworkers. They said, read another story like this where the coworker put poison into a lady's drink and almost killed her. This is why I never leave any open items in my cubicle. Coworkers are mostly evil. I don't know about the last part. Right. I think it depends on the working situation. Well,
I mean, I think that I'm suspicious of people. I mean, that is a little beyond. I don't know if that's true. Yeah,
that's fascinating. But you know what? This is what I carry, at True Crime News when I'm taping the show, and it's got a cover on it.
That's funny.
It's from my rescue, a purposeful rescue. And I walk around with this thing. I know I look like the crazy lady on 100 memes on TikTok.
No, you got to stay hydrated and you got to stay safe. And I think that it makes sense to do both things. Yeah, I think the most evil thing coworkers have done to me really is like steal my lunch or something for eat something.
Intentionally?
Yeah, I used to work. Yeah, I used to work in the tech space, and there was like a lot of dudes that you can kind of imagine work in the tech space, and you would leave your lunch in the fridge or something, and
that used to be a problem at NBC. Oh my God, people used to put up all these signs because there was this person, and I do believe there was this person who would eat everybody's food, and I think finally someone said they were going to set up a camera to figure out who was eating the food.
That's hilarious. I always go into our kitchen at our law firm, and if something's there, I'm like, oh, is it okay? Can I have a drink? Can I have whatever? And my secretary is always like, you paid for all of it, Alison. I mean, these were actually who are you asking for permission from? And I'm like, I don't know. I just, I don't want to take someone. She said, no. I ordered them using your credit card. So, if you want to take a highlighter, a pen, or a drink or a snack, you actually paid for it. And I said, okay, good.
You didn't even realize how generous you were.
Well, I mean, I'm unbelievable.
We're going to end this one on a comment from Hit47. They said, but will the charges stick?
Ooh, good one. Another good one. Good. Although I really liked Allison's, Came Unglued one. That was a good one.
Yeah, Came Unglued is great. Came Unglued is great. That's definitely the honorary mention.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, I fill in last minute and I come up with that. See, there you go.
You're so dependable. You really are. We know. And, one of the things we did last week, I read a couple of comments from YouTube because how I always tell you, I really do read your comments and half of you are like, no, she doesn't. But I do. Will knows for sure.
I know.
Right. And so I love this comment from that was about last week's podcast. This is from J Marsh 5791. I didn't know shout outs were an option on this channel, huh? Yes, they are.
Sure.
They are. And you just got yours. Congratulations, Jay Marsh.
Absolutely. And I got to say, we've got some fans in Kenya. I'm always so happy with all of our international fans. I think last week we talked about Romania. We got people everywhere listening to this podcast. So I love that.
Amazing. That's so great.
It is. Sorry, Will, to interrupt. Go on.
No. If you want to get your little shout out, go ahead and comment on our YouTube videos. Ana is there. She is in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. I want to thank everybody who sent in their comments for this piece. You can do that over on our YouTube community page. You can also reach out to us anytime across all social media. We're at My True Crime News. But that'll do it for this week's comment section. And until next week, don't do crime.
Alison, I'm so glad to see you. I feel like this is sadly has become our relationship.
I know, but we need to go to dinner.
We do.
Yeah.
We totally do. And when you were on, I believe it was last time, and you discussed your relationship growing up and going to high school with one of the Menendez brothers, I put that on TikTok, some clips of that. And it's just, people are fascinated by the fact that you went to high school and played tennis with one of the Menendez brothers.
And I'm telling you, I would study with him, and he would be at my parents' house. And my dad called him a sociopath for eating his dinner. My dad was a psychiatrist.
Wow. And boy, has that case flipped and changed significantly in the last few months from, oh my God, we think that they're getting out to, oh no, they're not.
And one of my very closest friends is the judge that's presiding over their case.
Which is going to be heard soon.
Yeah, Mike Jessic. brilliant legal mind, very thoughtful. And, he's an independent thinker. He and I have not discussed what he's ultimately going to do, but I don't think there's any way he's going to release him.
And the case that we're talking about, the very specific one, is about the sentence reduction, which was originally proposed and sought by the former DA. And then a new district attorney was elected, took office in January. And then he recently stated and filed all his papers saying, I don't think they deserve a reduction in sentence, which would then make them eligible for parole.
Nathan Hochman, from what I've been told, and I've met Mr. Hochman, and he's he is a man of real integrity, said, I'm going to give it an independent review. I don't, whatever Gascon did was another administration. I'm going to give it an independent review. From what I've been told, he personally reviewed 50,000 documents, 50,000. And he did not believe that there was new evidence. He did not believe that the evidence that they were presenting was new evidence. And he also does not believe that they should be resentenced. And while he credits what they have done while in custody, he said, I don't believe that it warrants a resentencing. And when I'm talking about the judge in this case, and again, I want to stress to our listeners, I have no idea what this judge is going to do. I haven't had any secret conversations with him, but he is a very thoughtful, thorough judge. And I just don't, I can't see the justifying of killing the mother.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, the mother, even if all those things are true, I'm not sure that a judge is going to say there really is no excuse for killing your mother.
Yes, but as I have seen in many abuse cases, what I have learned from interviewing so many victims is that, yes, there is massive anger and resentment toward the abusive parent, but there is almost even more anger
for the one that didn't do anything,
that didn't protect them.
But anger, as you know,
yes,
is not a defense. It's not a defense.
Right. No, right.
Right.
I am fascinated by this whole thing, and there's still another avenue for them because the governor of California has already set in motion a parole hearing for each brother.
Yes.
And that is a dual track. And that's going to happen this summer. And when each one has their hearing, that's when they're going to talk about, what kind of an inmate has he been?
That's right. And I'll tell you, I am very impressed with the things that they've done. Mm-hmm. These conflict resolutions, they both gotten educations. They both, they have used their time wisely, and they don't have disciplinary issues. So I'm very impressed with that. I think that is going to be probably their strongest bit of mitigation here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Man, you have a change in an elected official, and it is a complete about face, man. Complete.
Just yesterday, Anna, on Wednesday, Nathan Hochman, this is the Los Angeles County District Attorney, reversed a major Gascon policy, and that is he has reinstituted charging the death penalty in Los Angeles County. I mean, that was just 2 days ago. And so when you talk about a change of position, that's as drastic as you get. I mean, Gascon had said under no circumstance, multiple victims lying in wait, prior criminal history, senior citizens murdered, I will not charge, or my office will never charge the death penalty. Nathan Hochman, new sheriff in town, changing all the rules, and he has that right to do so.
Oh, Alison, I could talk to you forever. This is so funny. Now, everyone, you're getting an insight into what it is like when Alison and I actually do have dinner together.
It's the best. It lasts for about 6 hours. It's so wonderful.
We should start a new podcast.
That's right. That is right.
Oh my gosh. Alison, where can people find you and follow you on social media?
Okay, so obviously I have my law practice. law offices of Alison Triessl. I am the legal expert at KTLA, and I am the legal expert at Access Hollywood, Access Daily with Mario Lopez.
So cool. So cool. You can find me at Ana G News, Ana with one N. Of course, you can find everything that we do across every platform at My True Crime News. Subscribe to YouTube, our channel, because that's the channel where we have these great discussions and I read your comments. The podcast just lives on once it publishes because we have these vibrant discussions. And also you can receive our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. So until next time, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Ana Garcia. See you next time, everyone.